Okay, so that was an excerpt from a grade 5 violin piece. My daughter's doing her grade 5 at the moment, and that's a piece of Tchaikovsky called Chanson Triste. Now, as you can see on your display, there's a chord sequence. Now, what I've done here is to put the piano part into iRealPro, which is a great application that you can get on iPhone or Android. And actually, during this coronavirus pandemic, we're in kind of creative mode, musicians. Lots of orchestral musicians. Orchestras are furloughing people, or indeed they're going under and never to be seen again. This is not good. This is really not good. The arts are taking a proper hammering, so we've got to go into survival mode. Now, what I've done here really is akin to busking. I play some hospital gigs where I play in the courtyard outside, under an umbrella if it's raining, and I've got a backing track and then either my guitar or my violin. I do some jazz and some classical pieces as well, which I program into here. Now, it's a little bit ham-fisted as a sound. You know, the grade 5 piano part arrangement is fantastic, and of course, it's dynamic. Now, that's one thing you do lose with this. However, if you play this back with the mixer, we look at the mixer here, you could actually turn the piano down a little bit and maybe just turn the bass up so that the accompaniment is a sort of a lower down thing, but you've got some bass frequencies that will then give that piano a bit more depth. Now, of course, if you're busking on the street, you won't be playing as dynamically as you would in a concert hall. So actually, this is not going to be so much of a problem. Now, I've also got Allegro on here. I've just programmed a bit of the Vivaldi and iRealPro. Well, actually, Vivaldi wrote this particular piece in 1711, which is actually before the piano was invented. So we shouldn't get too snotty about the sounds that we use, really. We should be more worried about whether we can get an accompaniment and whether we can go on the street and play these pieces and earn money, because that's really where we're at the moment. It's just trying to get creative and getting things to work. So, how's it going to work with the Vivaldi then? Let's have a look. Etc. Now, how have I done this then? Well, what you have to do is you have to look at the piano part and work out what the harmony's doing. And all I've done is program this in. And I'm going to show you how that's done, because actually, when you've done it, stick it up on the forums, because there's going to be all sorts of other people who can make use of your part, and also, of course, you can download stuff as well. So actually, if we all upload stuff, it means that we can all have access to all of these pieces of music. You can go out on the street and you can play and earn money. Or indeed, you could go and play in a hospital or outside the hospital, or you can do any other gig with this. All you need is a Bluetooth speaker and your device. You can fit it on an iPhone. It's absolutely fine. I've got it on an iPad here, but basically the programming is the same. So if we go to the pencil symbol at the top, I'm going to go New Song. I'm going to pick the blank option, because actually the other forms here are more akin to jazz standards. So if we go to blank, we get a page which you can input your chords, whether it's got a different note in the bass and all of your bar numbers and all of that. So at the beginning then, when we're looking at this piano part, it's basically G major. It's a G major scale, so let's just stick a chord of G in. Next brings you to the next beat. It defaults to 4/4, but you can get all of your other time signatures by clicking the symbols bar, and then you can get 3/4, 4/4, 6/8, 12/8. You can do anything you like. So actually, it's very flexible. So I've done my 4 beats. And then on my 5th beat, I'm going to insert a bar line, which is at the beginning of that 5th beat, so the second bar. So we've then got a G chord, And then we've got a D chord, and then a G chord, basically for the next 2 beats. There's my second bar. I've got a D major chord, and then a G major chord. And then I've got the same bar again, D and G. And then we've got the that bit. So we've got actually a D. Then we've got kind of an A7 over E. A D with an F sharp in the bass. And then a G. Then next bar, we've got an A7 with a G in the bass. And then we've got a D chord. Now, we've got a G that's the second half of that beat. Are we going to worry about that? No. If you want to have chords that change every quaver, then of course you'd have to program this in at double the tempo, have twice the number of bars. But you could do that. It means that you do have greater control over the harmony. You can even change the bass note as it's going through a single chord, for example. So we are A, D, and then we've got a D, and then an A chord. And then our next bar, we've got a D. Next beat is a D with a C in the bass. G over B, and then G7 over B. Next bar, a C for the minim. Then we've got an A7 over C sharp, and then we go to our bar line. Then we've got a D chord, and then we've got to sort of it's kind of a D6 really, because there's a B with that D chord. And then we go to the next bar. So you can see how this might be a little bit restrictive to get the harmony exactly the same every bar. Now, minor, you think, well, there's no M button. It's actually a minus. That's kind of jazz speak for minor, but you can set that in the preferences. And then we've got C major 7 over E for the second half of that bar, etc., etc. So that now when we've done that, save, and let's see what happens. So we've got, and just to check this through, wow, it's put it as automatically a swing groove, and of course we don't want that. We want ballad even or ballad melodic. There we go. See what that sounds like. Of course the tempo's slow. Let's speed it up to 120 so we can check it a bit quicker than the actual tempo of this piece. That works. That works. Now, of course, usually jazz standards, you'd go round a chorus, whereas we just want once through, and then it would end on a chord. So you just program the rest of it up, and there you go. There's your piece of music. Now, you can change the sounds. What happens if we have vibraphone? Will that work? Because actually, the piano's a bit hard sounding. The vibraphone may carry better as an accompaniment if you're outside. Perhaps that's a little bit much, but the idea is there. You can change your sounds. You could change the acoustic bass into a tuba, organ, you can do anything. But acoustic bass is fairly unobtrusive. If you want switched on classics, you can have your drums. Yeah, see what that sounds like. maybe not. But if you're out in the street and you need to hear a bit of a time bass, you need to hear where you are, a little bit of drums needn't be too intrusive. Now, of course, it's not ideal, this. It's far from ideal, but we are in survival mode. So if you get a backing track like this with a Bluetooth speaker, whatever style of music, I mean, I started off with a Tchaikovsky, there's a bit of Vivaldi, 300-year-old piece of music that actually sounds okay on a phone. You could put some Elgar in. I've got Salut d'Amour as a backing track in this exactly the same format, and it's fine. Now, of course, you can't do the tempo variations that you'd really want in sort of romantic music, but really we just got to sacrifice that. Of course, you can change the tempo on the fly. You can change the key if you wanted to go into, you could change the key if you wanted to really stitch up your violinist mate on. You could walk past them as they're busking and change it to F sharp major if you're really that evil. However, there it is. There is a version and a way of getting this to work in a busking format, or when you've just got a solo gig, you can just build up these solo wedding gigs, for example. Weddings are limited to 15 people now over this coronavirus pandemic. But if you are, just playing the bride up the aisle or something, and there's just one person, you can have a little backing track to help you along the way.